So when I'm doing someone's makeup, one of the first things they say to me is, wow, how did you cover my dark circles? Or how did you cover that blemish? There's no texture. It doesn't look heavy. It doesn't look cakey. And I feel like with so much like information on social media and like concealing and correcting, that it's just kind of lost in how to do it in a way that is really natural and is really easy. You don't need 6 layers of makeup to cover dark circles. And I think people get really confused about like what shade to use. Do they use one that's darker? Do they use ones that lighter? Do they want to match? In my professional work, especially my photo shoots, I am very good, well, maybe not very good. I won't boast that well, but I think that it's very common for me to get compliments about my skin work and making it look absolutely flawless without any sign of makeup. It's just not that hard. I don't get it. It's just why do they make it so difficult? I know why they make it so difficult. It's so they can sell you another product. I'm going to use products that you already own, guaranteed. If you have any sort of makeup, you're going to have these products and you're going to have the skills to do it because it's actually really, really easy. No matter if it's a blemish or dark circles, whether it's like hyperpigmentation, anything like that, it's all generally going to be darker than your skin and probably a bit ashier. And so when you're going to cover it, you're going to make sure that you're going to account for both the depth and the tone. People are just kind of covering it with like an incredible amount of coverage, but you're not going to get a completely opaque look. And if you do, that is not going to look natural. You're going to look like a drag queen. I mean, if you want to look like a drag queen, then great. But this is not the tutorial for you. I'm going to zoom in into my skin really close, but let's just remember that I am also human. You can see that I do have a little blemish here. I have like a little, I don't know why I have one on each eyebrow, which is very random. I do have more on my neck, and I actually do get a lot more kind of body and like neck acne. But we're going to cover this one here, which is actually quite red and quite dark, especially on my skin tone, and also the under eyes. Now, my under eyes are very, very blue, and I am very, very white. So the first thing I want you to do is make sure the skin is very hydrated and very, very nourished. And I'm going to just put on a little bit of moisturizer. Having a nice, smooth, hydrated base is really essential because one of the main things that happens when doing makeup and making it look natural at any kind of makeup, whether that's cream or powder, that is going to be a layer of texture and dryness. You need to minimize that with minimal product, but also with the right skin prep. I have a lot of favorite eye creams, and I really, really love the kind of peptide ones and the ceramide ones. I find that they are the best for my under eye area. Anything will work. Like any kind of moisturizer, just make sure it's like minimal fragrance, because sometimes that fragrance can make your eyes water, which is, I know, a problem later when you put eyeshadow on. We've got some moisturizer on. The skin is really hydrated, really plump. I'm going to let that soak in a little bit. While it's soaking in, I'm actually going to apply my foundation, which is actually a skin tint. For me, a foundation is not for coverage. It's for like evening the skin tone and kind of canceling out any redness. And then you can pinpoint your concealer, which I think is a much better tactic than just layering it on, especially if you're trying to get kind of more natural, undetectable makeup. I'm filming in my bedroom today, and oh my God, it is getting so bright out there. It's been overcast all day, and now the sun's just come out and it's reflecting off the building next to me, and it's so bright. I was going to let down my neck because we don't want to have that line, and this foundation actually doesn't match completely. It's a little bit too, I don't know, it's just not the right tone. It's a bit peachy or something. So I feel like the redness in my face, especially in the center, is minimal, and I wouldn't really correct that any more than I already have with just the foundation. People will recommend you get a concealer that's your shade or a little bit lighter, and I'm going to show you what that looks like on one side, and then I'm going to do my technique on the other. I just got a little brush here, and you can, it's had its moment. But I'm going to do it in a very similar shape that I would normally do. I'm going to do a little bit here, because that is where my darkness is. And maybe a little bit here. Now you can blend it out with a sponge or your finger, however you like to do it. I like a brush just because it's easier for me. But I'm going to kind of tap that in to the skin. And you can see that it is actually a little bit warmer than my skin tone. It's not a lot of product. You do not need a lot of product. And I feel like that is key for minimizing texture, especially around the eyes. Now, that is not bad. I think it definitely looks brighter. But for me, I can still see that blueness coming through. I definitely want this to be more even. And actually, I don't really like the bright under eye look. On this side, I'm going to show you my trick. Now, the trick is very simple. You just grab a concealer that is darker. That's it. So the darker shade will be warmer, probably, on your skin tone. And it will kind of counteract any blueness and match. It'll kind of even out the skin so it matches the rest of your face. And it's one step. You don't need a corrector. You don't need to have any kind of special product. You just have the concealer that you might already have. If you go one shade darker, it's much more foolproof. And I think that is what most people are going to want to do, is to just go a little bit darker, enough to correct, but not have to work too hard. You can also just use a foundation that is a little bit more high coverage and a little bit deeper, you know? So get creative and try not to buy too much because you don't need to. You probably have way too much makeup already. I know I do. You can see that I'm being more precise with my application. You need to be directly on the depth and the blueness. And go back and forth, blend it in. You can also use a second brush to blend it in, or your foundation brush, which I really like to do, just to buff out the edges. For me, looking at myself in the mirror and in the back of the camera, this one looks brighter. This one looks more even. I can definitely see the blueness coming through here. I can see a little bit of the yellowness coming through here, but that can be easily corrected, you know, just by cleaning it up or tapping in with the foundation brush. This side looks so much more natural. I also feel like it looks brighter, not necessarily lighter, but I feel like it looks much more human-like and like I just naturally have better under eyes. This one, I can definitely see the blueness coming through so much, especially in comparison. And I'm going to do another layer of this side just to kind of compare. I'll do another dot there. Ooh. And then back in with the same brush. And I'm just going to layer that just to see what it looks like with more coverage. Definitely covering a little bit more, but I can definitely see more texture. And that's what I want to avoid. Right? If you want a brighter under eye, but you still want to get rid of that blueness, what you do is you just layer that white or lighter concealer on top of this. So I'm actually going to show you that on this side. On top of it, I'm going to show you how you would brighten the under eye with that same concealer. I'm going to go in with the same brush and try not to pick any product off the skin. You don't want to disturb that warmer tone underneath, and you can even just set it with a little bit of powder. I'm layering another layer. I'm layering another layer on top of the skin, and that's going to create more texture, more product, more texture. I've also just turned my aircon on because it is quite warm here, and my camera was not having it at the time. But hopefully you can't hear it too much. So I'm mostly focusing it on this space here because that's where I'm a little bit more hollow. Your facial anatomy is going to change dramatically. Of course, we all look very, very different. I think I'm just about done there. I feel like now comparing these in the back of the camera, this side is like incredibly bright and probably more bright than I would use for most situations. Same rules apply to like acne and stuff. This one's been covered quite well just by the foundation actually, but I'm going to show you how you can do it again. So I'm going to take like a really fine like pointed brush and I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to get really precise on where I put the concealer. And I'm just going to tap it in a little bit and you can see that that's really disappearing very, very quickly. And even though it's red and not blue, you still need to kind of correct it because it is still darker than your skin. So the next thing I want to show you how to cover is like large areas of discoloration or like beard shadow, which is what I'm going to cover right now. It's not coming up too much in the camera, I feel like, but I definitely have some blueness coming in through here and here. And that can be very common for people of color. They can get not blueness, but they'll get the darkness, discoloration around the face and around the mouth. So I'm going to do one side again. And I just kind of, you need to be precise, but also, who cares? I just do this. And it's definitely heavy. So I don't do this every day. I do this when I go out and I know that I'm going to like have a lot of makeup on anyway. Just tapping it in, try not to move it too much from the actual blue and dark areas. It doesn't take much time. It doesn't take too much product. And it actually is very easy. And if you do feel like it's like a little bit too warm for your skin tone, I just take the same foundation brush, get a little bit more. Just tap it over the top. Without trying to disturb too much of the product underneath. Can you see how much brighter this is without it looking obvious? Like, I think that's the main thing. We don't want it to be obvious. So let's do the other side just so I don't look too uneven. Same thing. Product. Blend. Blend, blend, blend. So easy. And this can be used to cover redness as well. I find that yellow is generally a better kind of corrector than green. Green doesn't exist in the skin like the correctors. You know, that shade of green where it's like minty, that doesn't exist in skin and it doesn't look good when you are. And now the only thing that is a little bit wrong for me is that this texture is a lot heavier than the rest of my face. And so I'm going to try and melt that in as much as I can. But again, I usually use this for heavier foundation kind of days where I'm going out to the club or something. So there's that. Like, that's pretty well covered. I would be happy to go out like that. And it's very easy, and you can kind of customize it to what you want to do, like what you want to cover and how much you want to cover it and how much effort you want to put in. Makeup should not be as hard as it's become. It's been overcomplicated, like to a degree where I don't even know what the fuck's going on. I've been doing this professionally for 7 years. Anyway, I won't ramble too much. Okay. Wet sponge. Another quick little tip. I'm just on a roll today. Get your sponge, wet it, get as much out as you can at the sink, and then get a tissue and squeeze it. Because that water, you don't need extra water on your face. All these tricks and tips that like mist your face after every step. Like, what the hell? Adding that layer between every single layer of makeup, that's a recipe for disaster. Anyway, very dry, but it's very big and squishy, which is what you want. And just tap it in. Helps with texture a little bit. And I'm putting normal product on. I'm probably pulling product off more than anything. And also just melting it into the skin. I've pulled up a little bit too much here. There's a little spot coming through. So again, I'm just going to grab a little bit of that same concealer and cover it. I don't care if things show through a little bit. That's not an issue for me. But I think like that looks perfected enough that I would be like confident to go outside. So let's recap. Less is more when it comes to product and having texture on the skin. More product equals more texture. Most people don't want too much texture on the skin because it's just not that flattering. So in terms of covering things, you can of course go down the route of covering with a corrector and then a concealer to cover that corrector and then a pad to set all that product and then a setting spray to make sure it doesn't crease and move too much. Or you can just try my technique where you just go a little bit darker with your concealer and that usually gets the job done. Yeah, keep it simple. It's just not that hard. Just keep it simple. Thank you so much for watching. If you've stuck around this long, this is my first video and I'm planning to do more of these and I'm excited to do more videos and stuff. So if you have any kind of beauty questions that need like a very direct, transparent answer, or I'm not trying to sell you a product, then let me know in the comments below. And also let me know if you try this out and how it works for you. Because again, I'm coming from the perspective of a professional that's been doing this for way too long. So if it is still too complicated for you as like a beginner or as like a regular person, then just let me know and I can again adjust it and give you some tips on how to do it in an easier and kind of very quick, simple way. Please subscribe, follow me on social media if you can. And yeah, I'm excited. I don't think I'm acting it, but I am. Thanks guys. Bye-bye.